that time again. Let's talk about gear. But as always, not just any gear. Today I want to share with you guys 5 pieces of filmmaking gear that I genuinely regret not buying sooner. Like legitimately things that if I lost or was stolen or broke right now, I would immediately go out and buy it again. Gear that has changed my workflow for the better. I was inspired to do this one by my man Luke Forsyth, amazing documentary filmmaker. Definitely go check out his channel below. But let's not waste any more time. The first piece of gear, these Condor Blue D-Tap to USB-C adapter. Power on the go with filmmaking gear is always a little bit of a tricky thing. It seems like you always end up with like 5 different chargers or power adapters. You have to make sure you have the right cables for each of those. They all take up a ton of space in your bags. Thankfully, most devices that we utilize nowadays are all pretty much using USB-C. So what these things do is allow you to power USB-C devices with up to 65 watts via power delivery from a D-Tap connection on the side of your V-mount or gold mount batteries. You know, those big camera batteries that many people are using nowadays. But what's unique here is you can use the USB-C to charge those batteries. It's a bi-directional cable. To clarify that, here's an example. You can use this cable on your cinema rig to continuously charge the internal battery of your camera while you're shooting. Instead of using something like a dummy battery, this means you can hot swap the V-mount battery on the back of your camera instead of having to power the entire thing off and switch out your batteries. And then because it's bi-directional, you can ditch your old bulky V-mount or gold mount chargers and literally just have this thing. Another thing, you could use this, again, it's 65 watts power delivery, so this will charge most of your devices, like for say a MacBook or an iPad with your V-mount battery. So with just this, a USB-C power adapter and a USB-C cable, you can pretty much charge all of the devices we use as filmmakers. If these things existed like 5 years ago, I feel like it would have literally blown people's minds, but now it just kind of seems obvious that something like this should exist. Anyways, thanks Condor Blue. If you're gonna travel with your gear, or even if you're not someone who travels, you're probably gonna need a bag or a case to put that gear inside of. Now, me personally, I can't count the amount of camera backpacks that I've used and gone through over the last like 8 to 10 years. The one thing that has truly stuck around with me and has never failed is this hard case from Nanook. Look, when it comes to moving around your equipment, stuff is gonna get banged up. Whether it's taking a flight, loading it in and out of the overhead bins, or God forbid, checking it, moving it in and out of cars on location, or even other people handling your gear. There's not really any avoiding it at some point. Having peace of mind, knowing that your gear is protected no matter the situation, is a huge stress reliever. Look, backpacks are great, of course. I think we all need one solid backpack, but over time, you will probably realize that your back starts to disagree with having 30 pounds of camera gear on it. Nanook has been my go-to hard case now for nearly a decade. I think I got this particular 935. This is like the carry-on roller size back in like 2015. No joke, this thing has been literally all over the world with me, like now 7 continents and all 50 states. First of all, the latch system, like how you actually open and close the case, these things are the best. They're super strong. They're much more forgiving on your fingers. A lot better than the traditional kind of just clamp locks that Pelican cases have. If you've ever tried to open or close those on a cold day when your fingers are just, ugh, not fun. The wheels are larger and a softer material than a lot of other cases, so it actually rolls smooth and quiet, much more like a suitcase. The handles on both the sides and the top here, you know, how you actually retract. This one is just so much more seamless, easy to grab. This one on the side actually locks down and stays in place and out of the way. The one on the top here has this kind of like retraction thing. Everything about Nanook to me is just far superior than any of the other hard case brands. I'm actually in the process of trying to switch out every hard case I have to Nanook just because I like them that much. Okay, so up next, a good on-camera monitor is easily one of my first recommendation to entry-level filmmakers looking to improve their cinematography skills. Think of the monitor like your eyes to the camera. Having an on-camera monitor, not just the one on the back of your camera, that you can trust to accurately make lighting and exposure decisions while shooting is 100% crucial. This new 7-inch monitor from Portkeys has quickly become one of my favorite camera monitors. The BM5 for a long time has been my favorite 5-inch monitor. I've really loved everything about this. So of course, when Portkeys announced the 7-inch version, I was immediately sold. I do also own the Small HD ND7, which honestly, I really do love, but I frequently find myself in shooting scenarios with that monitor where it's just not bright enough. I'm not able to see the display in sunlight, so I end up either having to put the sun hood on or figure out some way to block the sunlight while I'm shooting. The 1000 nit display just doesn't always cut it. This BM7 has a 2200 nit screen, so daylight shooting is literally amazing. Don't need a sun hood at all. It's a good looking 1080p screen as well, with 100% Rec 709 coverage and 85% DCI-P3. It's factory calibrated. It's got an all aluminum housing that feels robust. It'll definitely take a beating, but it's also pretty sleek. So it's fairly light, which means that when sticking it on smaller handheld camera builds, it doesn't feel too big or clunky. It has 2 SDI inputs and an SDI out with cross conversion, HDMI input and output. We've got a 2-pin LEMO power connector, but also a standard DC barrel port. It has wireless camera control for RED, Sony, Blackmagic, Panasonic. Of course, all of the monitoring features you'd expect. What's amazing is this thing comes in at a pretty impressive price point of $899, which is extremely competitive in the market of 7-inch monitors. This thing I think is probably the best option on the market if you're looking for a bright and fully featured 7-inch camera monitor. Well done, Portkeys. Okay. This next one is actually not a piece of gear. It's a sponsor. What? Musicbed. Before you skip past this actually is something that I wish I had sooner for my business. If you're like me, then music is kind of like the backbone to everything that we create as filmmakers, as storytellers. So having a service, a music library that truly helps you to stand out with quality and authentic music is probably one of the better investments you can make. Their library has over 40,000 songs of incredibly high quality, very curated music. I mean, they have artists that you hear in the real world. I'm somebody who's extremely picky with my music. Like, I really take time to find songs that absolutely fit the story that I'm trying to tell. Musicbed always lives up. I constantly find songs on there that inspire new ideas. It's one of my favorite tools to use. So if you guys are looking for better music to use in your work, then if you use my code RyanCow, you can get 1 month free off your purchase of an annual subscription. Check out the link down in the description. Thanks, Musicbed. Okay, it's not a physical piece of gear. In case you're new around here, about 3 years ago, I fully switched over to DaVinci Resolve. My God, looking back, I questioned my own sanity as to why I stuck with Premiere Pro for as long as I did. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone anymore. DaVinci Resolve is without a doubt a top tier editing program that is becoming more and more rapidly adopted by creatives even at the highest level. I actually did a video about 2 years ago breaking down my entire switch from Premiere Pro to Resolve, so I won't bore you with too many details here, but with the continued development and improvements from Blackmagic Design, I'm only more convinced that this is the software that people should be using in today's industry. Not only is it free, but it's offering industry-leading features with, of course, all of its color tools. They added a huge batch of new AI-driven features like automatic transcription, subtitles, text-based editing, super scale, which is super useful to be able to up-res any low-resolution footage, take your 1080p stuff, make it look 4K. I could go on, and honestly, I can't even list them off the top of my head, but But simply put, I think that this is the best editing software on the market. It's easily made me a faster and better editor. I've learned so much about color to the point that I've now taken on jobs as a colorist. Anyways, this isn't sponsored by Blackmagic, but if you do end up wanting to purchase the full studio version, which I highly recommend, it's a one-time purchase of $295 compared to Premiere Pro, which is over $20 a month. Think about that for a second. Let me know if you guys want to see any more videos about DaVinci. It's been a while since we've talked about it. All right, this next one is a strangely controversial piece of gear amongst filmmakers. Tripods. You'd think that it's just something that allows you to mount your camera in a fixed position, pan, tilt, whatever. So why would you want to spend a lot of money on it? Now, on the flip side of that, we spend thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars on our cameras and lenses. So why wouldn't you want to spend good money on one of the most practical and functional camera support devices that exists? Look, I've been on both sides of the argument, and it really wasn't up until maybe 2 years ago that I realized that investing into a tripod is one of the best things you can do as a filmmaker. I've had about every type of tripod you could imagine. The small, cheap ones, the travel-sized ones, different photo tripods, the bigger, bulkier ones from back in the day, and needless to say, they all got the job done for the most part. What became so apparent to me and really changed my mind were the moments where the tripod physically slowed me down. It seems easy enough to just have to unclip a few latches per leg to raise or lower your camera, or just, twist a few knobs. But now imagine if you could do all of that in just one simple motion, while trusting that it could support your 5, 10, 15 pound camera, no matter the situation. This Sockler Flowtech 75 is easily the nicest tripod I've ever owned. It's kind of like the Ferrari of tripods. I think we've all seen them at some point. Expensive, but such a good investment. On this, I have the Benro H8 video head, which is kind of an old video head, but still gets the job done. Now, just to be clear, the Flowtech is my go-to tripod, but there's kind of a new option on the block here for fast tripods. Small Rig recently came out with this Freeblazer AD100, but this thing is an incredibly well-priced, fast, and solid tripod. Just like the Flowtech, it allows you to change the height with just one latch per leg, which is incredibly handy. I love the fact that on the Flowtech, they're all at the top here, these red handles. The Small Rig, they are on each of the legs, kind of at the midpoint. So it's a little bit slower to raise and lower, but still a really nice design. This thing comes in at like $400 for the legs and the head. Flowtech, I think the legs on their own are like $1,600. If you're someone who doesn't have a decent tripod yet, do yourself a favor, stop using that one that you got for Christmas like 10 years ago. Get a good tripod. Promise you won't regret it. There you have it. That's my 5 pieces of gear that I wish I bought sooner. Thanks for watching.